Okay, we're back, and here is next installment of what we're doing here. We've got a swatch. We looked at it. We saw what was going on. A whole bunch of stuff. We're not going to get into every single thing right now. But you could see, while we're gone, I put all our stitches on one double pointed needle. They're kind of smushed on there. It's okay. Um, Now, my working yarn, the yarn that is attached to the ball of yarn here, is at the end. Usually you would see this when you were done and you did your last stitch. This needle is empty, this needle's full. So what you would normally do is flip this over and start again on the other side. Instead of doing that, I'm just actually going to take this opportunity with a full needle of stitches to, I'm going to actually rip this back. Not only am I going to rip it back, I'm going to take all the stitches off. So don't freak out. It's going to be okay. Taking all the stitches off. You probably normally wouldn't want to do this. But if you do, it's okay. This will happen to you sooner or later. You will have stitches fall off the needle. So what we're looking at right now is we have all these loops. And as I said before, these are live stitches. Any single one of them, if you pulled, would not only, it would pull the one next to it, and would pull the one on the other side, because if you could see, they're all connected in a row. Just like a big line, and then just loops pulled through. Just a big line of interconnected loops. So we saw it on the needles, but now you can kind of see it off the needles as well. They're connected side to side as well. Now, before, when we had that one stitch that had dropped down, we had ladders, ladders, ladders. We dropped that down and it was not a big deal. It just dropped straight down because all of the other stitches we had on two needles. So they were like locked in. They're not going anywhere. As long as your live stitch is on a needle, it's not going to unravel. However, none of these now are on a needle. So they're all like just out there, and you could pull them that way, you can have them unravel. So it's a little precarious right now. You want to be careful. But it's not the end of the world, especially with wool yarns or anything yarn that's kind of, I guess, sticky, you could say. A lot of times you can just pop your needle right back in there. And as long as you're paying attention to making sure that every single column of stitches has a live stitch at the top of it, and that all of them are facing the right way, or the same way when you put them on the needle, it's not that big of a deal. It's not the end of the world. To horrify you further, I'm actually going to rip all of these stitches out. So just ripping them out kind of gently, not so hard. Basically, I'm ripping the old loops out, and new loops are going to be left behind. And you can see some of them look a little different, but most of them I'm ripping from the back, and they're just popping back like that. Some of them I'm ripping from the front, and you'll know why in a second. Rip into the back. Couple more left. Okay, so I'm getting towards the end here, which is good. So I'm kind of sick of ripping these out. So that's that. So I'm actually going to put these on a needle now. I could put them on a double pointed needle, or I could put them on a circular needle. I could put them on a straight needle, whatever you want to do. I'm going to put them on a circular needle because I'm actually going to want to do something with these. So I'm going to start from the other side. You got your loop there. And I'm just going to thread these back on. I'm going to try and make them all face the right way, which is with their front leg, the right leg to the front. Being a little careful. They'll all get on there. Oops, sorry. Sometimes this camera goes in and out of focus, as I'm sure you've seen by now. Getting there. Now, something also, you gotta make sure that none of these drop down while you're doing this. You would see that your stitches drop down if you saw a ladder or some sort of long piece of yarn just floating around. It would be kind of obvious to you. We'll see that in a little while. Because we'll be ripping more things out. Okay, so this process is a little tedious. We're almost done. Putting these back on. And so also, if you pinch a stitch right there, it's not going to go anywhere. So if you see one starting to slip away, you just grab it. Grab it by the throat. Put it on there. So when you're doing stuff like this, it's kind of important to make sure that you have all the stitches you want to have. I counted before this. I know that my swatch is 25 stitches wide. So I'm counting now. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. They're all there. All are present and accounted for. So at this point, now my yarn is at the other end. And I have a full needle, which is in my left hand, full of stitches, which means we are ready to go. Since it's a circular needle, I'm going to get the other end. Whoa. Bring it over here. Now, circular needles, you can knit in a circular manner in them. You can just use them as two straight needles that just happen to be connected. It's not a big deal. That's why I have pretty much all my needles are circular. Some people love straight needles, and I'm just not happening to be one of them. But there are people who love them and who have full sets of straight needles and use them and then use different circulars. I have pretty much all circulars, also because I do a lot of circular knitting. So I'm ready to go. I have all my stitches over here. I need to get them over to this other needle. And in the process, I want to get new loops. So what I'm going to do, big picture, just bring a new loop through each one of these stitches. There's two ways you can bring the loops through. You can bring them from the back to the front. You can bring them from the front to the back. Those are pretty much the only two ways you can do it. I'm actually, instead of showing you with this needle first, I'm just going to show you with a crochet hook just because it's a little bit easier to see. I have my working yarn to the back. Now don't get too crazy about worrying about if this is English style, if this is continental style, if this is whatever style. What we're doing now is we're just making a knit stitch. The way you make a knit stitch is that you have your yarn in the back, you go through and get it and drag it through to the front. There's a lot of different ways to do this. You can do this holding your yarn in this hand. You can do this holding your yarn in this hand. Sometimes people don't even hold the yarn at all and just have it wrapped around their neck. There's a lot of different ways that people around the world knit. Very, very interesting if you want to watch videos on. There are tons of videos on this on YouTube that are probably going to be different and or better than what I'm showing you right now. You have to find the way that you're comfortable. I started out actually holding my yarn in this hand. That's how I was taught when I was a little kid. I then relearned holding my yarn in this hand, and then I actually switched back after a while. So I know how to do it two ways, which is great because at some point you might want to have two different yarns at the same time and you can do it with both hands. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, you have to knit continental, it's better. Oh, you have to knit English, it's better. There's no such thing as better They're different. You have to learn what's most comfortable for you, and sometimes you'll know both. So as I said, a knit stitch, any kind of knit stitch, your yarn is in the back. In every stitch, the last stitch on the needle is the one you're going to be messing with. Each stitch, as we said before, has two legs. It's going to have a front leg, a back leg. All of these stitches, the right hand leg is in the front. So to go make a knit stitch, we're going to go from the front to the back. Your yarn's in back. Always think, yarn's in back when you're knitting. You're going to go get that yarn. How do you go get it? You have to go from the front to back to get it. You're going to go, you see the stitch, under the needle, between the legs, under the needle, between the legs. And I just have a crochet hook right now. Some people might like to learn with crochet hooks because it's easier to hook the thread and bring it through. And also it's just simpler. You're just going to get this yarn, you're hooking it, and you're bringing it through. You have your new loop. You don't need the old loop, so you take it off. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it a couple times so you can see. And I'll switch over to a real needle. Knit stitch, yarn's in the back. You're going to go from the front, between the legs, to the back. I'm just trying to, I'm just going to pull this through. I have my new loop. That's the old loop there. It's going off. I don't need it anymore. So you could see I'm getting new V's by doing this because I'm making knit stitches. Okay, I'm going to actually switch over to a needle. To show you with a needle, still the same. Yarn's in the back. You're going to go get the yarn from front to back. Go get it, go fetch it, and bring it back. Taking up a new loop, bringing it over. The way that I'm holding it right now, I'm holding my yarn in my left hand. This is technically called continental style knitting, also called German style. I learned this way when I was very young because my family is German. My grandmother taught me. I, of course, was 5 or 6, so I promptly forgot and had to learn again later in life. The person who taught me at that point was what's called knit in the English style. So when I learned that way, it was different. And actually, I'm not very good at it anymore because I've knit continental for so long. But the same thing applies. Whether you hold your yarn in your right hand, your left hand, you're still going to take the needle that you want to get the loops onto. Your yarn's still in the back. You're going to go get that yarn. You're going to go from front to back, through the stitch, between the legs, under the needle. You're going to fetch it, so you're going to wrap it, and bring it back. You have your new loop. You don't need the old one, so you take it off. So I did it 2 different ways. I've gotten the same result. You want to look at that again? I have yarn in the right hand. I'm still just the same, going from front to back, between the legs, under the needle. I'm taking my yarn, and I'm actually taking my hand off this needle, throwing it around, and bringing it forward. So because I'm kind of whipping around like that, sometimes they'll call it throwing, the English style throwing. To do that though, it's quite a bit of movement to go and do this. Some people like it. That's how they learned. That's how they're comfortable. Me particularly, this is a little bit more efficient to me. And which is why I switched back to continental after so long, is because you're not taking your hands off the needles at all. You're going from front to back. You're just giving it a swipe and bringing it forward and off. So it's a little bit less movement. So there's a lot of people that will say, oh, continental style, it's faster, it's better. There's no necessarily, what's best for you is what you're comfortable with. You could have, sometimes I'll even purl English style and knit cottonelle style. You can mix and match. You can do whatever you want. Eventually you get to the point where you're going to be a little bit faster, and it's going to be a very nice fluid movement. Knitting from front to back, fetch your yarn, bring it through. Knitting, your yarn's in back, fetch your yarn, bring it through. And that's how it goes. And so you see you're getting a series of V's. V, 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 V. All your new stitches look like V's. And that's how it goes. That is your knit stitch.